Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
We're in Red Media.
Welcome to the Life and Times of Captain Barney Miller podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is the rookie, Chris Dashew.
And somehow, yet at the end of this show, I am still the rookie. How am I still the rookie? Nobody else in the precinct is still what they were at the beginning.
Right. Everyone else got promoted.
Does Richard
Chris
have to give me the information from somebody else? Okay, is that
Congratulations, Levine. Here you go.
You didn't evolve like everyone else.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's so far from the truth.
As you may have guessed, we are joined by two guests. It is our frequent co-host, well, semi-frequent. We've got Richard Hatem in the house.
You've come so far. Is that what Harris says about Wojo at the very end? I think it is.
I think it is.
So he's come so far.
He's come so far.
He's come so far.
I give that, Chris, I give that to you.
And resident Barney Miller expert, Otto Bruno.
Glad to be here, Mike, although it's interesting that I'm the resident expert, and yet I haven't been on the show as much as Richard Hatem, but that's okay.
Oh, should we discuss the
happy
rivalry
to be here
right
now?
Oh, boy.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Look, he brought the heat immediately.
I just got invited to a party, and I just said I'd go.
To be fair,
like
though, Otto,
nipple rubbing, that really worked.
To be fair, Otto, you became involved with us because of your expertise with Barney Miller. Richard became involved with us by his own choice. He made the mistake one day of reaching out to Mike and I and going, "Hey, I really like your Kolchak podcast." And then it was like that was the last time Richard Hatem had a sleepless night or a good sleep night. That's
Oh,
like a mastodon stumbling into the
La Brea tar pits.
Well, I should say that it was Max Gale that introduced us to Otto Bruno when I was reaching out to Max, and he said, "Oh, you should talk to my friend Otto. He's doing a book all about Barney Miller." And I was like, "What? What? A book about Barney Miller?"
And it then took how long for us to get to talk to Max Gale? It was like, "Hey, let me introduce you to my pal Otto." Later, by the way.
Yeah.
5 years later.
You guys did talk to him. That's happened?
That is our previous episode, yes.
You are killing my body.
But
God damn it.
we are
I don't want
nourishing
you to
your
spoil
soul.
the episode, but was it amazing?
Yes.
It was amazing. Yes.
Oh, good. I'm very happy to hear.
Max
He's a
Gale
great
was
guy.
He was such a nice person. It's not even like I can't eat Richard. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll be listening along with the rest of America.
The thing that won't come through on the interview is that when we started talking with him, he was on his iPhone. He couldn't keep his iPhone straight. It just kept moving around, gave me a little bit of motion sickness, but it was okay. But he started talking to us probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon,
5:15.
California time. He lives around the Bay, had to cancel because he was having some transmission problems. But we talked with him, and as we're talking to him, the sun is going down. So by the time we were done talking with him, it was just the light of the iPhone lighting his face in complete darkness. It was beautiful.
We got magic hour with Max Gale and everything.
Yeah.
and so you recorded the video with.
Oh, yeah.
But you'll.
Well, just the audio. We just provided the audio. But yeah, I mean, if you were nice enough to us, Richard Hatem, we might provide you.
Yeah.
I begged you guys to just be a blank screen. I would just lurk.
But isn't this technically the same thing?
No.
I mean, it technically is, though.
Was he in? I'm sorry. I know we're talking about an episode that I guess you just aired or something. But was he in the Bay? You said he's in the Bay Area, not in L.A.
He moved away from L.A. Thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's in San Fran now.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Not because I don't like LA or anything. As Randy Newman once said, I do in fact love LA.
Well,
but
LA's fine. The sun shines most of the time and the feeling is laid back.
Yeah.
On this episode, we are talking about the 3-parter Landmark Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. The original Landmark Part 1 aired May 6, 1982. Landmark Part 2 came out May 13th, 1982. And Landmark Part 3 came out May 20th, 1982. These are the final 3 episodes of Barney Miller. It's interesting we've had 2-parters, but I don't think we've had any 3-parters before. We've not had good luck with 2-parters, but I have to say that these 3, they don't necessarily connect as much as you might think. They're definitely not as connected as some of the 2-parters that we've had. It's just kind of like we've been doing for the last couple seasons here, where we actually are speaking to the previous episodes as we move into the current episode, and then we just wrap it all up with Landmark Part 3. So Landmark Part 1 is mostly talking about the way that the station is being sold. Some stuff has happened between last episode and this episode. Last episode, they found the rifle that belonged to Teddy Roosevelt, and now we are kind of having a regular episode with occasional appearances by Al Rusico as Jack Norrell, who is coming in and taking a look at the place, kicking the tires, talking about maybe buying this place. I think he's talking with Victoria Hoffine, who's played by Susan Tulsky. And then, along the way, we are actually doing a regular episode of this. We've got Phil Sterling in here as Howard Spangler, a fantastic name. And this is a really interesting and sad story for me. This guy who was taken prisoner by, and does he ever say which country it is, which rebel group? I'm thinking it's got to be like Sandinistas or something, but he's kind of put out because he's a hostage, but not one of the big 50 from the Iran Contra hostage deal that we had. So he was more on the Contra side, I guess, than the Iran side of that.
Yeah, it was, I know you talked with Max in the last episode, so he, I assume, told you that the whole thing that gets this started about the American Indian who was arrested because they were stealing the bones of his people. That was Max's idea, because he had been told by them that they would do some storylines about American Indians.
Right.
He told you that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because Max was always very involved with that. And and then the only other thing which maybe he didn't tell you was season 6 and 7 had been taken over by Tony Sheehan, and we've talked about this before because Danny was out for health reasons because of his heart. And Danny comes back to produce season 8, the final season, and Tony left. But then when they got to the ending of this season and they were going to, try to wrap it up, they actually asked Tony to come back. So it was Danny, Tony Sheehan, Frank Dungan, and Mike Stein who all worked on. I mean, they were all. I think the credits were split up the way it comes out on screen.
I believe his name is Jeff Stein. I don't mean to correct the expert.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said Mike Stein.
Oh no, you're right, Jeff Stein. I'm sorry. You're right. All right, wise ass Hatem. Okay.
Wow. And the rivalry is alive again.
Well, I think I saw Roland Kibbe's name in these as well.
And Roland Kibbe, yes, who was Danny's old, longtime friend. Actually, before we got on the air, we were talking about the sort of off-mic rivalry between Richard Hatem and Otto Bruno, even though we have never met or seen each other, because, as I said, he's been on more than I have, and the first episode he was on...
That first statement was a dig at me and you, Mike, by the way.
Yeah, and
I caught it.
Okay,
that first episode that Richard was on, he verbally attacked me, viciously attacked me.
An ad hominem attack.
Yeah,
yes.
That's what my dad would say.
And he was ready to rip me a new one until Chris mentioned that I was the guy who was writing the book about him. And then all of a sudden, I became like this exalted figure. I mean, I can understand now. It makes more sense why he's a successful Hollywood writer and producer. Obviously, he knows how to turn on a dime, and
yes, it's what we call. Let me finish.
You didn't let me make my point yet. Okay, I can see you're getting upset, so I'm just gonna pivot halfway through.
But the one thing I did like about Richard Hatem in that whole first episode I listened to, and in his second episode, because this ticked me off about Chris too, Richard, I'm just going to tell you, is that...
What did you take? This is your last chance to be on this show, so it's like, let me air my grievances.
Got a lot of problems with you people.
What do you mean, you people? Podcasters?
No, just Chris, who attacked Levitt from day one and would not give Levitt any props from day one. And, I do believe he finally came around.
We've both come around.
I was about to say, I'm not going to throw Mike under the bus because I know Mike is going to say the same thing like we both did. Like, it was, Otto, if you had listened to the show, you would know it wasn't just me.
Well, but
somehow your voice was more indelible, Chris.
Here's the thing, Chris. You're the youngest one out of all of us, which means, it means
I bring the sex appeal.
You're the most judgmental because young people are the most judgmental.
Whoa.
Yes.
Back it up there, Buster.
you and your woke.
Whoa.
It's causing airplane crashes now and forest fires in California.
I thought that was the dwarfism.
No, it's woke that does it.
It's the woke mind virus
crashing our planes.
Yeah. The other person that I should mention is James Gallery as Christopher Galt, and he really sets up this episode because we have the opening with Harris talking to his stockbroker, I believe, on the phone, talking about how he's getting this $10,000 advance for a book, because that's what you do. Very easy to get $10,000 for a book. That's why Otto's sitting on the golden throne over there. And he's talking about how he wants to start investing back in the market. I guess we've solved the whole problem of the 2 episodes ago with the lawyer and just all that. Yeah, we weren't a big what was that one called? The Incident or the I can't remember what that one was off.
I don't know. Let me check this book. Written by
Altercation.
I'm sorry, Otto. There's a book.
There is a book.
See, and I'm not going to give him a freebie this time.
There's a book, but there's also this thing called Wikipedia, which is just as good. Oh,
yeah, right.
Oh, God.
Why don't you just go tell us to check in with AI about Barney Miller?
Oh, there you go.
Would you like for me to?
Remember when I read that intro that the computer wrote?
Yes.
Right.
Where Barney Miller was a sailor?
He was a sailor. Barney Miller, Captain Barney Miller.
Right. Suddenly, Richard Hatem has now become my favorite person on this podcast.
Well, I can't believe it took 9 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, it feels like that whole thing with Ripner is over now because Harris is about to collect $10,000 for his book. And meanwhile, this poor guy who I'm trying to remember, what was his job? It wasn't air traffic control, but he got fired from his job.
He got fired from his job, which I don't know if he said what he did, but he wants money. He wants money to go to bartending school.
Right.
Okay,
right.
But listen to this. He said he was fired on the first day of the administration.
Thank you.
The new administration.
The new administration.
Nobody's doing this. This is not a thing. Don't be telling us this.
1982.
Yes, so
all the same.
Years ago. It sounds like it was written yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
And then he goes, yeah, the way things are going, I think people are going to be really drinking a lot.
Yes. So might as well go to bartender school. It's going to cost me $153 to enroll, and the mugger took my last $153 from the ATM, which made me realize just how old ATMs are.
Yeah,
and how unique and novel this was. I remember I was in I was in high school, and within a year or two, my dad got me an ATM card and had an account that I had access to. And he's like, okay, here's how much you're allowed to take. And it was magic. It was like a slot machine.
Wow.
To just walk up, put a card in, do a couple things on a computer screen, which was its own like science fiction concept to be interacting with something like that. And then money comes out that I did not earn. And now I walk away and it's like, hello, I've got money now. You don't realize the first days of the ATM, you felt like you were robbing a bank.
Oh, yeah. I remember going to college. This was 1990, and there was a little Comerica on the corner of a couple streets, and had my account set up that my folks could put money into if they needed to, and I could put my earnings from the movie theater and then eventually Blockbuster in there. And they were the first branch to start firing tellers that I knew of, start firing tellers and just saying like, well, go to the ATM. They just wanted everybody to start using the ATM and just fuck all these poor people. And it was the tellers that were telling me to do that. I'm like, I'd rather interact with a real person.
No, you'd walk into the bank and they'd say, well, just go outside and use that. Can you imagine? Jesus Christ. Well, if anything, it tells us this has been going on a long time.
The computers are stealing our jobs.
Yes. And I know it feels new and I know it's terrible, but I'm just here to reassure you it's been terrible forever.
Yes.
Boy, now I'm starting to think Richard and I were separated at birth. Now I'm concerned.
Are you also Lebanese?
Richard, I have said this to my kids for years and years and years because they get, they're very sensitive and they get depressed and they're very, we raise them to be very left leaning and all this stuff. And I say, yes, but remember, it's always been terrible. The world has always been terrible. The species is a horrible species. There are wonderful people within it, but mankind in general is deeply, deeply flawed. So there you go.
Great parent.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, are you Lebanese?
I am Lebanese. I'm half Lebanese.
I wrote an article once about Danny Thomas, or actually Danny Williams, being the first Italian father I ever saw on TV. Even though I knew he wasn't
right.
Italian, yeah, I knew he was Lebanese. But because he was a parent who was on television in the 50s, who yelled at their children and yet also hugged and kissed his children, even his son, I said that I related to all of that when I was a little kid.
Well, representation matters.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Hear it all
We
the
always talk about
time.
that.
There you go.
I never. The only Lebanese person I saw as a child was Klinger,
Oh, yes.
Jamie Farr in a dress. So I was proud.
There you go. Well, you should have watched Dan. You should have seen Danny Thomas show in reruns, because you would have had Danny Williams. You would have had his Uncle Tanous.
Uncle Tanous.
Uncle Tanous.
Okay, not knowing that Danny Thomas was Lebanese, can I explain my lifelong erotic attachment to Marlo Thomas?
In great detail.
Yeah, and then later, I'm like, wait. You mean she is one of my people? Ah, and then I grew a terrible hatred for Phil Donahue.
Now we know what happened to Phil Donahue.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mike, Mike, do you feel like maybe we should have had a separate show with just
Possibly.
Hatem and I meeting?
I think it might have been good. And then, I don't know why you guys aren't doing a Rockford Files show.
Oh, what time is it?
Let's go,
I was
man.
just saying, before we started this recording, Mike was like, "We getting on with this?" And I was like, "If we gonna get into it, but I'm not sure they're gonna stop."
I've got some time. I've got time right after this, so I'm ready to jump into the
We're
Kirkhoff.
gonna start
phase.
holding hands and everything. Here, what's going on?
I love it.
He's gonna pin Otto in his text top 5 before we're
That's
careful.
All right, I'll
You'll
bring
never
us-
hear from us again.
I'll bring us back, Mike. You're talking about James Gallery and the guy who is guilting Harris because he's heard that he's getting the $10,000 advance and he needs the $170 for bartending school. And as empathetic a person as I like to believe I am, let me just say that guy's character was about as annoying as Norman DeLuca. Okay, he really annoyed me.
Oh, wait a second, guys. Guys, according to this book I have in front of me, the character's name is Mr. Dozier, and it was played by Keith Langsdale.
What book is that, Richard Hatem?
This book is called, it's by Otto Bruno. It's called Barney Miller and the Files of the Old 1-2. And it is, listen, here's my advice. When you need a gift for your dad, this is it.
I'll take it. I don't know if that's... that's an interesting thing, which I'm sure Mike doesn't want us to get into right now. So let me just say, it is an interesting thing that it does seem to be I probably shouldn't say this, but it does seem to be a man's show.
Okay. Yes. I think in a way it is. I think at the time it wasn't. I think it is now.
It had an opportunity to not be as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the show points that out at the end of the show, which, as much as I was watching it through tears in my eyes for half an hour, I didn't need to see that, because that was a little bit of like a, show, this is the one thing you fucked up on. Like,
I know that you guys are in contact with Linda Lavin's people. You might want to just not worry about that right now.
Yeah.
Well, Linda Lavin was the person who said she would talk to me and then pulled out at the last second for whatever reason.
Oh, we don't know why.
No, we don't know why. The guy who was her piano player, a very talented gentleman named Billy Stritch, I was in contact with him via Facebook, and he said, he goes, I think she'd probably be willing to talk to you. Let me ask her. So he asked her, and she said she'd be more than happy to talk to you. She's flying out to do a gig somewhere. I don't know, because she was singing somewhere. And then he said she'll contact you when she gets back. So then I'm trying to remember if she contacted me or if he did, or maybe I hadn't heard from either of them. So I contacted him again, and he says, "Oh, I thought she would have talked to you by now." He says, "Let me reach out to her again." And then when he came back to me, he said, "She said she can't do it right now. If you want, you can call her people, and they'll decide whether they can make time or something like that." And at that point, as a hot-blooded Sicilian, I said, "Well, the hell with it then. Forget it, man. She said she was going to do it, and now she's not going to do it. So fine, she won't be I mean, she's represented, but I could have talked to her."
Yeah, and I deeply, deeply wish that had been able to happen. I'm sorry she didn't do it. She was working up until the very end, which is
right.
Great.
Literally,
I saw her in there's a Netflix show. And you know how Netflix, when you go through the queue, if you rest on any title for more than 1 second, they just start playing a trailer for it. Mm-hmm. So there's a show with Ray Romano and Lisa Kudrow called No Good Deed. And I hadn't watched it, but I rested on that title for 1 second, and they began showing a little scene. And the scene was between Lisa Kudrow and Linda Lavin. This is a show that just premiered this year. It's a 2024 show. And Linda Lavin was in it playing like a crazy neighbor or something, and she was hilarious. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's not like she's been at the motion picture home for 20 years or something. She's doing it. And that's what makes me even more sort of like, I wish somehow that interview could have taken place, because she was one of the last three: Hal Linden, Max Hale, and Linda Lavin.
Yeah, I was very frustrated because I really did want to talk to her. And yeah, I was watching her again. Somehow I was Facebook friends with Billy Stritch, and they were doing like Zoom shows during COVID because they were neighbors. They lived in the same building, I guess, in New York. And she would go upstairs to his apartment, and he would play. They'd set up a camera, and he'd play the piano, and she would sing. And she was still sounding great. She was in her, I don't know, 80s, late 80s or something.
Well, of the people that sort of came in and you sort of got the feeling, oh, they're trying to add this person as a regular, I really think that Wentworth was the one that would have worked, this sort of hyper-aggressive New York woman, and of course played by Linda Lavin, who was so funny and so great in the episodes that she was in. And I can see that personality working in the mix of people. And it's not, that was not what Fish was. It wasn't what Yamana was. It wasn't what Gregory Sierra, it was its own thing that made sense. A woman who's kind of a little sort of hyper motivated because she's in a profession that is not typically a woman's profession, but she's a New Yorker. So you kind of instantly get her. And so man, the regrets pile up. First, that she was not on the show more. And then second, that we you guys didn't get to talk to her and kind of find out behind the scenes what happened. Because I don't know, Otto, do you?
Well, basically it was, there were different stories, but excuse me, supposedly she wanted a little more money and they were dragging their feet on giving her more money. And then she got the offer to do Alice. And once she got the offer to do Alice, well, obviously, forget it. Then it was her own show, and as we know, that went on for something like 8 years, I think. So the other person who was really, I thought, was good and was interesting was that June Gable, who played the Hispanic officer, and she was one of the very first people I talked to when I started interviewing people for the book, June Gable. She was very nice. And her thing was that Danny had seen her in a play in New York. I think it was The Ritz, or what was it? Is that the name of it? The Ritz? It had like a Hispanic cast to it. Is that right? Anyway, it was something like that. But
I think it was called West Side Story, but go on.
No, it wasn't West Side Story. But she did this play. Danny saw her, and he hired her to play Detective Batista. So in the first or second episode, if you remember how Gregory Sierra, when he would get angry, he would start spewing out the Spanish really fast. So Danny said to June Gable, he says, "Oh, when you get to this point, just start, like swearing or saying something in Spanish really fast." And she said, "Okay." She says, "Are you gonna write it out for me to to do it phonetically?" And he says, "No, no, just speak Spanish." And she says, "Well, I don't speak Spanish." And he said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Aren't you Puerto Rican?" She says, "No." He said, "But I saw you in that play."
It's called acting, darling. You should try it sometime.
So she got, in a sense, she got hired on a false premise because he assumed that she was Hispanic. And going back to what Richard said about how so many things that we think are new that are just happening now and never happened before. According to June Gable, there was an issue because there was a group then that was starting, and they were protesting shows that were doing Hispanic characters but weren't hiring Hispanic actors to play those characters. So Danny said to her, "I'm really sorry, but I'm getting pressure and I'm going to have to let you go." So she was only on for, I think, only 2, maybe 3 episodes, but I think it was only 2. So that's why her character didn't work out.
From a production standpoint, it's kind of the perfect show to bring on characters, sort of audition them in real time, see how it works, see how the audience reacts, see how the network, studio, everyone reacts, and then be able to okay, yeah, it's not really working out, and then, send them on their way, which they did. There's not a lot of shows that can do that because they're just not set up that way. It's a family, or it's a more stable environment where if you bring someone on, you got to be sure it's like they're on now, and
Right.
we're pushing all of our money onto the table, and this is how we're doing it.
I'm on board, Cousin Oliver. Yeah, you can't just
Right,
drop a cousin or a brother in someplace. Well, I guess you could if you're on Buffy.
What if you're
Or-
Mike? What if you're just that detective Mike? Mike, what about, where's Mike? He didn't show up at the end.
He's in Flushing Meadows.
But you guys, certainly Chris and maybe Mike, too young to remember Chuck Cunningham on Happy Days.
I remember Chuck. Do you know what the story was with Chuck?
Yeah, he went upstairs and was never heard from again.
He died in Vietnam.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, went to Vietnam, just died. Yeah. Well, what really happened was Gavin O'Herlihy, right?
I think that's the right name. Yeah.
He was pretty put out because they had this whole subtext in there where he had actually molested the sister, Joni,
Erin Moran.
Yeah, because that whole thing of Jenny Piccolo was just she had fractured her personality after the abuse happened, and she would blame everything on Jenny Piccolo and just talk about how Jenny Piccolo was the slut and doing all these things, and it was really Joni all along. She couldn't face it. So, and meanwhile, there's this whole other thing where Fonzie started sleeping with Miriam Cunningham because he's right upstairs, and there was always that sexual tension between them. It got real bad real quick, and O'Herlihy's like, "I don't need this. I'm out of here."
Right.
Richard, I know you're only a couple years younger than I am, Richard, but these young people have no respect for the sanctity of television history.
They don't understand that Gary Marshall was the genius who would come in, do a single camera show for a season or 2, and then turn it into a multicam, and it would run for 8 more years.
You mean the devil from Hocus Pocus?
He did it with Happy Days. The man was a genius.
Although his funniest show ever in the history of television was his first show, which was The Odd Couple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Odd Couple was great. But Odd Couple is weird when you watch those early episodes that are like the movie, And it's like...
Yes. Wow, you're right. I never thought of that, but he did the exact same thing with The Odd Couple as he did with... I never even thought about it. You're right. He did it with both of them.
And I think he learned from one. I mean, I think... I don't know. He's a filmmaker. He went on to make films. That's single camera. He can do it, and it can be funny. But I think he sensed there was a change from the single camera with laugh track. I think he sensed. I think that is becoming de rigueur, and we have to move on from Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, and we got to do a 3-camera. And he had cast members who could do it, who were very used to being live on stage. Jack Klugman, Tony Randall. And then I guess he sort of checked in with Ron Howard and Henry Winkler and all the rest and was like, we're going to do this. You guys can do it. And he felt that they could, and then they could, and they did.
Well, of course, Barney started live in front of a studio audience and then went the other way because Danny could never finish the scripts in time. So
when did that flip over? When was that change made?
It depends who you talk to. Hal always said they only shot in front of a live studio audience the first few shows. I really, really, really don't think that is true. Between talking to Tony and some of the other actors who appeared on the show, I think it happened maybe near the middle or end of the second season. Maybe even a little later. The problem was it probably felt like it started sooner because they used to film and then they do so many pickups, and they were doing so many pickups that sometimes Danny would decide that he didn't like the ending, and then he would completely rewrite the ending, and that's how they ended up getting the reputation for shooting until 3 or 4 in the morning, because they would all sit around on set while Danny went upstairs and rewrote the last scene or something,
Wow.
So it was really crazy, but
so they got used to doing, like, they'd be in front of an audience, but then throughout the week they'd be called back to the stage to do stuff not in front of an audience. And the idea maybe is that Hal Linden is conflating that.
I think so.
Oh, that's when we started. We were already not doing it. Yeah.
I think that's what happened. Yeah.
I remember talking with Chris as far as you could hear some of the scenes sounded like they were sweetened with laughter, and some of the laughter, I think, to your point, in the second season started to feel more like a laugh track than an actual studio audience. I mean, it wasn't that repetitive laugh track that you get for something like MASH, where it felt like they had maybe 5 cues and they would just play those over and over again.
Right.
But yeah, you could definitely tell, like, oh yeah, this is no longer in front of a studio audience, no matter how hard they're trying to do that. And then some of those angles that we've pointed out before, where it's like suddenly cutting to a real close shot of like a Dietrich or a Wojo, and you're like, yeah, that's not a typical 3-camera setup that they're doing here.
No, that was definitely a drop in, something that they had picked up and dropped in. But the guy I spoke with, his name was Perry Krause, and he was the editor for a number of years. And he claimed that even when they were in front of a live studio audience, as to your point, Mike, that he said there would always be moments where we might sweeten it here or there. So according to him, they were sweetening even before they were just shooting without an audience.
So on Landmark Part 2, we're continuing this whole story of the sale of the station. And with this one, again, very typical episode, even though we're kind of carrying on with this whole subplot of what's going on here. Especially, I would say, the crime school, where we were introduced to 2 little old ladies, and I believe we've seen both of these ladies before. Definitely Florence Hallop we've seen before. She's got the best voice. She's the best little old lady who's ever little old ladied. And these 2 are criminals, and then they start to talk about how they were taught by one of the best criminal teachers in the business, Professor Vincent Thorndike, played by the one and only Robert Costanzo, who is just always so good. And I really like this whole subplot that they have, this story that they have going through here.
Well, it's like the character was described as being, greasy or slimy, and then he literally is. You can see the lights shining off the gel in his hair. There's just like dripping onto his neck.
Now, it's a great. First of all, for your audience members who might be 80 or older, Florence Hallop was the sister of Billy Hallop, who was one of the original Dead End kids at Warner Brothers Studios back in the 1930s. And of course, she went on after Selma Diamond died on Night Court. Florence Hallop came in and took her place, and then she died sadly after a year. So, but she was hilarious. But this Helen Verbit was the other lady who played Estelle Bobus, and yes, she had done more than one Barney Miller as well, and they were just so funny. I love Hallep's line where Costanzo says to them, "You know that check you two wrote me, it bounced." And Florence Hallep said, "We thought you'd be proud."
Yes, it's so good. Oh, and I love how the other one is so into Dietrich and just that sexual chemistry there when he's letting her out of the cage. Whew, give me the vapors.
Okay, so timeline wise, this episode's in 1982, and then the question is, when did Night Court go on the air by Reinhold Wiggy, who was a writer on Barney Miller, who then went on to create Night Court?
That was Ouija.
No, actually, Richard is correct.
Really? Wow. This whole time.
Richard Hatem, everybody. 1 point for the Hatem.
He pronounced it Reinhold Wiggy. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So,
if I may continue.
Wow. Richard Hatem, ladies and gentlemen. Go right
Thank you, Otto.
ahead.
Otto, we'll talk about this later. Anyway, so then Selma Diamond was, of course, on Night Court, and then is then replaced when she tragically passes away by this. So, like, how many years now are separating all this, or did he see your? I don't know.
I think Night Court started
84.
in 84. Yeah,
wow.
Right.
January of 84.
Right. So Selma Diamond must have lasted from 84. So she must have died sometime in 85. So that means Night Court was exactly like Barney Miller. It started off as a mid-season replacement.
Yep.
Then they did one full year, and then Selma Diamond died of lung cancer, and I think she was like 62 or 64, something like that. And then they bring Florence Hallep in, and I don't remember if she lasted 1 or 2 seasons, but then she died of lung cancer at almost the exact same age as Selma Diamond. Yeah, very sad.
And then they got Roz, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Marsha Warfield.
Would you agree that people were older back then?
Definitely.
Well, James Gregory's only 42 in this role.
James Gregory, it's funny you should say that, Mike. I checked it up. In that last episode, Landmark Part 3, James Gregory was 69 years old.
Wow.
So when he started doing that role, he was basically pretty much my age right now when he started that role.
He looks like he's 85.
Right.
That's
old looking guy.
Yeah.
He's so amazing, though. And I was very surprised to see him and to get the mail order bride back in here. And Luger's just being such a prick. Oh, my God. Yeah. Talk about an awkward relationship that these two have. And I'm so surprised that it actually seems to work out in Landmark Part 3, because it does not look good in Landmark Part 2.
It's funny,
work out in Landmark Part 3 though? Like that's
yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that relationship.
As I watched it this time, Mike, I have to say I agree. It was so uncomfortable, and I mean I love Inspector Luger. I love Luger, but yes, he on one hand he is being kind of a dick, but on the other hand, you have to remember the guy was a lifelong bachelor, and he had,
well, according to Chris, he was a confirmed bachelor.
Yes, well, we know what Chris meant when he said that, but
wow, I feel personally attacked.
I don't know if the audience knows, but Chris identifies as gay. So.
I am gay. I'm gay.
I don't know if you've heard this.
As Mike would always say, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it's obvious.
Pink headphones, guys.
It's obvious that he's gay because he's sitting there holding a chihuahua. But anyway.
I was about to say. You have no idea. You know what? You joke, Otto. But since the last time Otto and I spoke, my life situation has changed a lot. And in one of those moments during those last 9 months, I literally picked up my dog and I went, Oh, great. No, I'm just, and I can say this, no one else can. Oh, great. Now I'm just a faggot with a little dog.
Listen,
like,
all
I'm not
you
a
need-
stereotype now or anything.
Chris, seriously, all you need is a bucket of confetti and you're Rip Taylor.
I know. Oh my. I made the joke about him being gay, but like I mean look, he is. Look at the way he treats his mail order bride. Why is she there? Why
the
is
logic?
she there?
Is the logic that he's suddenly afraid that he cannot perform sexually, or what?
I
what
don't
is the
get it.
basis of his sudden cold feet? What is that?
I mean, Agonist over at the ShopRite, she was really getting him hot to trot a few, seasons ago. He was getting married in the morning, but yeah, this time.
I think Richard has hit it, though. I mean, that's the impression I get, is that he's afraid he's too old and she'll be too much for him to handle. Whether it's just her general energy level because she's so much younger than him, or whether it's her sexual energy. Either one. I do think that's his fear, because doesn't he make some line when they talk about going on his honeymoon? He says, "I'll see you when I get back from my honeymoon." Then he says, "If I get back from my honeymoon."
Yep, that's right.
There's this it is, earlier on we were sort of saying, is this a guy show? Is this just a show that guys like? Because the cast is overwhelmingly male and the point of view of every story is so overwhelmingly straight male and mostly straight white male, but we do have some Harris episodes. But all that having been said, in that era, all of these, I mean, look, even in the third of the Landmark episodes, when Binder is back and his wife is literally physically cowering with her hands over her head as if she's going to be hit by him. The joke is clearly he hits her a lot, so every time she says something that bugs him, she's got to duck. I mean, it feels like in this era it was still acceptable to find comedy in either an abusive situation, or in the case of Luger, this sort of weird, like, I'm horny, but I don't know if my dick can cash the checks my mouth is right. That's where it's coming from, and it really rings sour.
Oh, God, yes.
3 years later.
Yeah, I think that this is 1982. I think it's safe to say we are at the very end, even though fucking Bob Hope would carry on for another 15 goddamn years. But I think yes, you're right. I think we can safely say we're at the end of the vaudeville influenced television comedy.
Take my wife, please. Take my wife.
Exactly. And that kind of stuff goes all the way back to vaudeville and to radio, and we're all enlightened people now, so we can say, well, they're making jokes.
For yourself.
They're making jokes about wife beating, basically. But sad to say, wife beating jokes, more or less, they weren't called that, were pretty common back in vaudeville, on radio. Even although I never, you always knew Alice was the boss, but everyone likes to bring up, young people. There's young people sometimes who say, "Oh my God, he's going to hit his wife." Well, when he threatens, "Oh, to the moon, Alice." But if you were really watching the show, clearly she was in control and he was the child, so it wasn't, he was never really going to hurt her. But yeah, it's a what do you call it, it's something that's hanging on, but definitely on its way out.
I mean, it's low hanging fruit. Like, I mean, we get it. The whole that, and look, that was the thing that I really, really detested about Abe Vigoda's character with Bernice, was just like, "Oh, my wife is such a fucking ball and chain." Like, then leave her dickhead Like, then fucking go. Because you know what? By the end of Abe Vigoda's run on this show, it was literally one note. And then, oh, by the way, we had to be reminded of that at the end of the show that, oh, he had all of one note the entire time that he became a popular character on the show.
Well, I never understood why Al Bundy wasn't thanking his lucky stars
my
for
God.
Peg, because she was the most horny and beautiful woman on television. And I'm just like, what is your fucking problem, dude?
Have you seen
Go
Katie
back to
Seagal
selling
recently? She's still beautiful,
Oh my
even now.
God. Yeah.
And then
Go
it
back
was
to-
like, what are you complaining about then, asshole?
Go back and sell some fucking shoes. I'll take this broad out. Come on.
Well, these are very old comedy forms. And this show was considered, and by the way, still considered by me and all of you guys and a lot of people to be an example of really good comedy of the era. It's funny because you had shows on concurrently with Barney Miller, like Taxi, which didn't traffic in that sort of humor. And then even before that, you had the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which when you go back and watch that, it was, pretty out front feminist. I mean, there was a little Lou Grant, old fashionedness, but clearly the thrust of that show was about women in the modern age. So this one, by coming from a real different place, still manages to put across a level of humanity that in its self-defined universe is, I think, still pretty effective and still emotionally affecting.
Yeah, Richard brings up a brilliant point. And then
I think I'm going to get an A. Final is going to make up for a lot of the homework I missed.
and that is, yes, like now you used both Taxi and Mary Tyler Moore. Well, those were both Jimmy Burrows shows, and Burrows was a young Turk.
James Brooks.
Brooks. I'm sorry, James Brooks.
And Burrows, they were both. Yeah, no, right. Both.
But James Brooks at that time was a young Turk. He was he was new on the, he had already done Room 222, but still he was a younger guy. Danny went all the way back. Danny started his career at Columbia Pictures in the late 40s. Okay. So Danny was old school. Danny started writing for who? Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. And Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis is essentially about a man who's beating his wife, except that the wife is the monkey and the monkey is Jerry Lewis. And Dean Martin is the suave guy who's in control. So yes, his stuff. And by the way, Danny got interested in show business because he had an uncle who played the mountain comedy circuit in the
Catskills?
The Catskills in the 20s and 30s. So, so that is where Danny came from. And yet, despite these uncomfortable moments in Barney Miller, yet it was still an unusually sophisticated comedy for that period. I mean, you named a couple of again, when you're talking about Mary Tyler Moore and Taxi, you're obviously not talking about the typical fare of that era. They were the cream of the crop of that time, just like, in my opinion, Barney was. But they came from two different generational influences.
So okay, I do this class at UCLA. I teach a class, and it's sort of like it's not even TV writing. It's like pre-TV writing. And there's a woman in my class right now who is our age, and something came up the other night, and I made a reference to, I'm like, well, none of you are going to know what this is, but there was a show called Barney Miller. And she's like, I love that show. And I'm like, right, because you're my age, and everyone else in the room is 20.
Right.
But the idea that it's a man's show, back then in 1982, women watched that show and loved it. And they probably loved it because these men weren't horrible assholes. There's an appeal to Hal Linden, there's an appeal to Ron Glass, there's an appeal to Max Gale. And I think because we were not seeing these men in abusive or horrible relationships with their female counterparts, Fish is probably the worst we got. The
He
Max
is the
Gale
worst.
almost spinoff was not awesome. Barbara Barry is fantastic. And for what we saw of her, that relationship is like, okay, then Barney's nice to her. They're nice to each other. They just, grew apart or ran into problems because he's a cop and she isn't, whatever.
Right.
But women could watch this show and go, I like those men. And I like to believe that they are kind and equitable to their female life partners if they have them.
Well, you've got pure sex appeal here with Hal Linden. I mean, that
kind of
man.
Yeah.
And then you got Ron Glass and Steve Landisberg and Max Gale. And, some people probably into Ron Carey as well. I'm not going to shame anybody, but yeah, I definitely can see that. And my wife absolutely laughed quite a few times while we were watching these shows together. And I felt.
This is the funny thing. You look at this cast and Hal Linden was a star on Broadway. I think the others were fairly unknown. Jack Sue was known sort of within his community, but
he was in Flower Drum Song and quite a few other things. Yeah.
These people were not being cast because they were the hot CW, ripped ab, hot guy. These were regular looking men. And when, I mentioned Mary Tyler Moore earlier, and it's so funny. I show that in my class. And I'm like, now I want you to look at the men in this show. How many of them are bald? It's like there's 3 men. 2 of them are bald and one has gray hair the day you see them, the very first day. And in the first season, they start talking about how old they are. And when they say they're in their 40s, I fell off the couch. I'm like, I guess, of course they are. Like, it couldn't be that they're not. But Jesus Christ, these men were not cast because they were hot and sexy in a traditional or modern sense. They were cast because they were right for the role. Once they were cast, believe me, there were women who were like, Lou Grant, I'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in the case of Ed Asner, I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
But no, I mean, that's a great point, and I've talked about that in. I of course don't teach at a fancy university. I just teach.
Oh, it's extension. It's not.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of stuff I teach.
I go in at night when the real teachers leave, like
Right.
a rat.
And that's what I teach. And I'm always saying to people, I'm like, these were real character actors. You don't have them anymore because if you watch television now, everybody is 30 or younger. As you said, everybody is in great shape. Everybody looks like they came out of a catalog. Well, there aren't catalogs anymore, but you know what I mean. They're all models. They all look like models instead of looking like exactly what you said, real people. And the other thing is, yes, I don't think none of those men were misogynist. Some might have betrayed some male chauvinism at times, but that was very reflective of the time. Even, the fish thing is similar to, again, hearkening back to the 1950s, is similar to Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton, complaining about their wives, but they obviously loved their wives. And yeah, Fish could be a little harsh, but they always had to make sure you knew that he loved Bernice as well. So I don't know. I didn't listen to this episode yet, but I know Mike and Chris, and I applaud them for their bravery. I believe they watched some episodes of Fish, the spinoff, which is a horrible, horrible show.
Yes, it is.
But like any shows at that time, they did have to show that deep down Fish did love Bernice. But I think you're right, Richard. These were men who they might not have been quite as forward thinking as James L. Brooks, but they certainly respected women.
Right. And it was a different show. I mean, it was overwhelmingly male cast and overwhelmingly male production staff, writers, directors. There were no, Jim Brooks made an effort early on Mary Tyler Moore to hire women writers. Weirdly, that sort of died off. In the last 2-3 seasons, it was predominantly men. But that's kind of what we were talking about. It's like, well, if there's not a lot of women in the cast and there's not a lot of women writing the show or directing the show or producing the show, that's not the point of view you're going to get. And I think we were lucky to get what we got, which was a ethnically diverse show about men trying to learn how to emotionally interact with each other. I mean, these last 3 episodes kind of went up and went down in terms of our modern sensibility, but that last episode where they all say goodbye, then they leave, the guys, and then they come back in. Let's try this again. That was really
that's
amazing.
It's interesting that they end Landmark Part 2 with this whole thing of Barney basically being like, look at how shitty this place is. Look at how awful this place is. And just really trying to rally them that way. Like,
we're going to be somewhere else. They're moving us somewhere else together.
Exactly.
Right. It's going to be better.
And then we get to Landmark Part 3. And again, they try to start it like a regular episode. We've got this whole case of the missing manhole covers. And I don't know, $12 for a manhole cover in 1982 sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, around here, like, copper would disappear. My wife went to work, and this is only a few years ago, went to work, and somebody had cut the entire power box off of the outside of the building where she worked at, took it, threw it over the fence to the scrapyard that was right behind there, and then sold that shit for I don't know how much. But, it was a real thing. Like, catalytic converters have a little bit of platinum in them, so people would rip off the catalytic converter. So manhole covers, $12 a piece, sounds great. And yeah, that's like one of the very few other stories that we get, because so much of this, like when we start off Landmark Part 3, they are literally packing up the whole station. And that becomes the whole thrust of this episode. And I'm actually surprised that they don't have more callbacks to the past. Well, I take it back real quick here. There's one other thing, which is the thing that you pointed out forever ago, Otto, which is the whole paranoids of proof. It's kind of the story of the guy who's got the cure for a disease, and the drug company doesn't want them to sell it because it's not that big of a disease.
Right. But the other thing is, I did write this in the book, I think, that never in the history of Barney Miller have the cases that came into the precinct that day been so unimportant and so
literally unimportant.
Right. Totally. And so wrapped up so quickly.
Yeah.
If there's a weakness to the pharmaceutical story, it's that guy came in, and maybe we won't press charges, and then they turn him around so quickly. I mean, like in a heartbeat, like, really? That's all it took? So why does this guy have to steal his culture to begin with? By the way, that was one of the few things I really laughed out loud at, was when he said, when Harris closes the door and he says, my culture is dying. And Harris is like, tell me about it.
Right. Oh, so good.
I laughed out loud at that. But yeah, it's really so unimportant in this episode, the actual case part of it, and they just wrapped it up so fast. And it's funny, I've heard other people that I've talked to over the years complain about the fact that they didn't do, like you just said, Mike, more callbacks, or that they didn't bring Abe Vigoda back for that last episode. And
or Barbara Barry, that's who I kept waiting to come through the door.
Or Barbara Barry, yeah. And again,
I mean, at this point, he talked to her on the phone for a second.
Oh, right. Yeah, true.
Right. But I've talked to you guys about this before, and that is that Abe and Danny did not exactly end well.
No.
So,
well, you talk about it in the book, which is available at Bear Manor Media, by the way, guys. If you want to pick it up, that was a freebie, Otto. You don't owe me anything for it.
So it was, I was not, it was obvious that he wasn't going to come back. And Barbara Barry, although he didn't want to have any hard feelings with her, but she she was a little put off, not by how she was treated, but just by, she was basically hired when, as you guys both know very well, when the show was going to be the life and times of Barney Miller, and they were going to talk about his home life as well. So when they immediately decided to go another way, her character became obsolete fairly quickly. And so she was, sort of proud of what she did, and she liked some of those people, but she was also kind of, put off by kind of being hired, and then all of a sudden the role that she was being hired for, they decided not to let it evolve the way she thought it was going to. I thought it was nice that they do the callbacks to all the guys in the squad room who were no longer there. They didn't necessarily have to do that. And I will say, of course, I've seen it so many times, so I wasn't crying at the end. And of course, for me, I feel like I'll always be part of the 12th now. So I don't, have any really emotional response to the ending. I will say this though, the one thing that always gets me is the type on the screen at the very end when it says, thank you. Goodbye and thank you to all of us from the old one too. That always gets me. And
I just got shivers up my arms.
Yeah, and again, that's the whole thing about. I have to say again, I don't think these three episodes were necessarily. I mean, well, I definitely don't think they were the three greatest episodes of the series by any stretch. But I do think it was brilliant that the end of the series comes about because of the end of this building. Because again, I think I wrote this in the book too. That building was a character in the series, because they talked about it so much from season 1 all the way through the end. And I thought that as being the way they tied this trilogy to the building, I thought that was brilliant.
The way that building looked, there was something Otto, I think you're East Coast. Are you in New York or are you in?
I'm in New York State. I'm not in New York City.
There was a thing in LA, which was the only place I've ever lived, where in the 70s, I remember going into buildings and offices and things on the West Coast that were very kind of run down and old and felt old. And I was a little kid and I was very aware of it. And then in the 80s, it's like that all went away. It's like old stuff got torn down. And especially in LA, there was that a very specific sort of white walls and, aqua and pink neon, almost like Miami Vice, like a lot of cheap sort of condos and apartment buildings got put up. And it felt like, oh, all the old stuff is gone. And it's only looking at this and sort of feeling like, yeah, I bet that did change. And I don't know if it changes much in New York as fast or if that feeling exists, but it's like, oh, all the kind of old, kind of creaky, a little bit not great buildings, they're all gone. And now it's all clean.
Oh, yeah. Well, it feels like this was probably a 4 or 5 story building where it was just low enough that they didn't have to put in an elevator. And you just kind of picture these guys trudging up these stairs every single morning to get up to the precinct, or every late afternoon, because it feels like more and more as we've watched these later episodes, I've realized that they tend to work the afternoon/evening shift than any other point of the day, because there are a lot of late nights had at this precinct.
Right. Well, Richard, I have never been to LA, but I've read enough and seen enough that I always got the feeling that LA and Hollywood in particular never really had a lot of respect for their monuments, their monument buildings and things like that, God. Like New York, like a city like New York or Boston did.
Yeah, no, it's so weird if you think of popular entertainment as being the product that we produce here in LA, the respect and regard for it is minimal. It's minuscule. It's vanishing because the very nature of the product is we're done with that. We're done with that. We're done with that. Don't look backward. You look backward, you're out of a job.
That's why we don't have films preserved from the silent era, and so many things are missing because it's like, yeah, just tape over it, throw it in a landfill. We don't give a shit.
It's weird. Like, you can find things. Like, you can go into Echo Park and find plaques on exterior staircases. It's like Laurel and Hardy filmed a film here in the Three Stooges, and and you're like, oh wow, and there'll be a plaque every once in a while somewhere, but mostly that's like, ooh, you can feel a goose walking over your grave if you start talking about the past. Only talk about the future and forget the past.
Well, how about all the famous houses that they've destroyed and razed there that the movie stars built, or the movie producers or whoever built these very famous homes, and then now these new developers come in and just plow them over and put up a $10 million monstrosity.
And like we were talking about earlier, the fires that we've had, they specifically hit two communities that actually had community history, where homes were built over a course of decades. It wasn't just, suddenly we built Encino. It was like, no, the Palisades and Altadena were, Palisades obviously very, very wealthy. Altadena, millionaires and just working people, all within the same 2 or 3 miles. Ethnic diversity throughout the decades. And you moved to Altadena for that reason. That's why you wanted to be in Altadena. You wanted to be in a place where your neighbor had llamas. And your other neighbor was a famous novelist, and it's like, whoa, this is like cool. It's gone. It's gone and it won't come back. You can't. How do you bring that back? You don't. It'll take 100 years, and it won't be there. It'll be somewhere else.
I'm very surprised that in Landmark Part 3, the news about them being split up comes pretty early in the episode. I think it's about 5 minutes in when they get the call of who's going where, and then it becomes the question of who's going to tell Harris that he's going to Flushing Meadows. But they are taking these guys and just scattering them to the four winds, and it's just awful. That's the one thing that they had to hold on to, was that, don't worry, at least we'll be together. And it's just so sad, and it makes me think of all the coworkers that I've had over the years, where you're just like stuck in an office with the same few people, and you see them day in and day out. And then once the job is over, you just lose touch. And there are certain people where I'm like, rather than having a class reunion, I'd rather have a reunion with all of my old cool coworkers, people that I haven't seen in forever. And it's just like, there are some people that I still maintain contact with from like my earliest jobs, and then other people just have completely gone other places. They just I've ghosted. I mean, fuck LinkedIn. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess you're doing good, but thanks for never returning my text, asshole. But anyway, it's just, I feel so bad for these guys, because here they are day in, day out. They have these other people that they rely on. I mean, they put their lives in each other's hands literally every single day. And now we've got them going off every single which way, and you kind of feel like they might not ever see each other again. Maybe they'll grab a drink once in a while, but I don't see Harris calling up Dietrich and saying, hey, yeah, let's go hit the town.
I think the thing that makes me really sad about this entire part of the show, and it's the thing that you just kind of alluded to, Mike, is, and this is, I mean, work or life or other things, like one day you're just not going to get online and game with your friends anymore. You're not going to know what day that is, but it's just going to happen. And with the guys in the precinct, like one day was just going to be the last day, and they didn't even know when it was coming. Like, I mean, Dietrich said it in the last episode. He goes, good job finding that gun. Like, yeah. And like, that was it. Like, literally, like that's the end of the precinct right there, is Wojciechowicz finding that gun. And then, that one thing leads to another, and then the precinct is gone. Like, it's crazy to me that this is the way the show ends, because it's such, like, parts of the end of this show, they don't make me upset, but they're a real fucking bummer, and I don't understand why.
See, but now as a kid, it bothered me a lot when they were all going someplace different, and everything you're saying, Chris, really bothered me when I first saw it, however many years ago that was now.
When you and
And
Jesus were sitting on a rock together
yeah,
watching it on your
exactly.
TV.
Exactly. But again, it goes to Danny's ability to not talk down to an audience. That's reality. That's what happens. Mike just said it. It's happened to all of us. We have worked with people and we've gone to lunch with them every day and we've done this, and we've done that. And then we go our own separate ways. Now,
But does it happen overnight though? Because that's what happens in the show, and that's the thing. That's the hard thing here, right? It's like sometimes there's warning and you see it coming, but this is like Wojo found the gun. A month later, it's over. Like,
well, no,
Okay.
technically, he found the gun, and then Ruscio's character there, Norell, he in that I can't remember if it was at the end of Landmark 1. Yeah, it must have been at the end of Landmark 1 where he wasn't sure if he was going to buy it. And then
Right.
in the beginning of Landmark 2, Barney says, "Oh, we haven't seen you for what, a month or two."
Like a
then."
month.
right.
Yeah. And
then they have
then it's
30
another
days.
month. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's so I'm off by
So-
a month. So it's 2 months and then they're out.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you, in my line of work as
Right.
a TV writer, this happens all the time.
Right.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
funny that he's sort of reflecting that where you're an incredibly tight family working long hours for a year, 2 years, maybe, if you're lucky.
8
back
years.
then, 8 years. And then one day the call comes from the network and it's like, we're done. And sometimes
Yep.
you're done right away.
Right.
I've been in those situations where it's like you're done. Filming stops tonight. You're done. You're out of the office next week, and it's over. And because of the way my career in television has gone, it has been predominantly one season gigs for a course of 20 some years. You work on a show for 6, 9 months, it ends. You know, it's the first season, doesn't work out, show gets canceled, you're on to the next. And then you try to get another gig and another gig and another gig. And it's funny because we do, well, a couple things. Modern times, cell phones, computers, internet,
Right.
it's easier to keep in touch.
Right.
We're in LA, we all have cars. It's very easy to say, hey, let's all have a little reunion over at Laurel Tavern, outside Bradford and, on Ventura, and let's grab a drink. And you can keep in touch. And sometimes you're on a show with somebody and then that show ends. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, you're back in a room with that same person. It's like, where have you been? Oh my God. And you have to work again. And that's happened to me a few times. So it is weirdly reminiscent of a writing staff where it's like, well, you're going on to that show and you're going on to this other show and you're out of a job and you'll be lucky to get something and catch you someday down the road. And that's how this one ended. And maybe that's emotionally what he was drawing from.
Yeah, I think the only thing different here is that everybody is breaking apart and going somewhere. But when, at least in my experience, when you've worked places, someone, gives a 2-week notice and then they're in 2 weeks they're gone and they're working somewhere else. So it's just one person at a time maybe who is left. But
Well, unless the show gets
not everybody
canceled.
all at once.
right,
And,
not
and let
everybody
me tell
else.
you, the number of shows I've been on that have just been canceled and everyone loses their job at the same time. I don't know if it's because of me. I don't know if I'm the typhoid Mary of the TV industry, but man, the number of goodbye parties. and yet I will say there's been a couple, 3, 4 shows where we have kept in touch and we have done hey, a couple times a year, let's all meet up down at the place and get appetizers and hang out on the patio all night and drink and eat wings and catch up. And I've been lucky that there have been a handful of shows that have worked out that way.
I mean, I'm a survivor of the dot bomb back in the early 2000s where, whole companies would just close their doors, or the time where I went into work and they said, okay, you go up to this person's office. And then they had us all march down to Senior Frogs down the street. And they said, okay, take a look around. Everybody who's here still has a job. You're coming back tomorrow. Everybody who's not here will not be back in the office tomorrow. So we lost 80% of our workforce that day. That was traumatizing.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, Mike, you've talked to, you sort of talked. You listened to Sal Viscuso, my friend Sal Viscuso.
Yes.
And Sal always, like, one of the first stories Sal ever told me was that the first show that brought him out to L.A. was the Montefuscos, which was Bill Persky and Sam Denoff. And on the Montefuscos, by the way, was Ron Carey, Candy Azara, people that would crop up on Barney Miller later on. But he said he found out that they got canceled because he was watching The Tonight Show one night and Lee Grant was on. And at that time, her show, she was doing a show called Faye, and it was the lead-in to the Montefuscos, or vice versa. The Montefuscos led into Faye, one or the other. And she came on The Tonight Show that night, and she was pissed because she had just gotten word that her show was canceled. And she said on the air, they just canceled us and the show that precedes us.
Oh, jeez.
And Sal was watching the show with his wife. He's like, that's how I found out I was out of a job.
Wow.
Like, that's how I found out our show was canceled live on television.
Well, I guess the other way is when Scanlon comes and visits the precinct to rub everybody's nose in it and then lets it drop that Barney's gotten his big promotion that we've been talking about for the last 5 or 6 episodes here. So that was kind of nice. I have to say that I was really happy to see Ray show up in this. I was really, really happy to see Marty and Mr. Driscoll show up, though I thought they were supposed to be in California.
I started crying when he walked out there.
Right?
I literally lost it. I literally lost it. I was like, oh my God.
The reappearance of Marty really touched me.
Yep, same. 100%.
And they also had my all-time favorite character in the 12th Precincts, and that is Mr. Roth, played by Ralph Manza.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah.
Godzilla 1999's own Ralph Manza.
Oh, I thought you were going to go for Banachek. Yeah.
He ran away from Godzilla at the beginning of Godzilla. Go watch it. What happened.
I saw that once at the theater. I've never gone back.
Every time we bring up Ralph Manza, that's all I can think of is him fishing at the end of a pier and then Godzilla chasing after him underwater. It's in the trailer for the movie.
I hate to shock you, but I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you
live in New York State. I don't understand.
Yeah. So were multiple moments where I was at the edge or past tears with this, because we get like them coming in, all the people coming in, and then they all leave, and then we've got Luger's wife coming in. I'm like, okay, or soon to be wife. I'm like, I don't really care about the storyline whatsoever. But then, like you were saying, Otto, when they say their goodbyes. And we've got Barney left alone in that room. And we get those little flashbacks of Chano and then Fish. And then I was surprised Wentworth showed up. I was like, holy shit.
I was so glad.
Amazing.
I was super happy.
And then when they hit Nick, I was just like, because I was thinking to myself, okay, at this point in the real world, obviously, Gregory Sierra is still alive, was with us until just a few years ago. Abe Vigoda was still alive, was with us until just a few years ago. Linda Lavin has, at the time of this recording, passed away pretty recently. So that really started to hit me. And then when they showed Yomana, and I just said, oh, fuck, Nick has been gone for a few years now. And he was such a major part of those first 4 seasons, I can't remember. I just said, oh, man. And that really hit me. I kind of lost it there. And then, when they come back in and they do the proper goodbye, and like you said, man, the on-screen text just killed me.
Yeah, because I thought of this years and years ago, but the first show I had to say goodbye to was, again, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. That's the first one I remember.
That was tough.
That I had to say goodbye to the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And the Mary Tyler Moore Show ended in a very similar way, if you recall, where Mary's the last one out and she just kind of gives a winsome look back and then turns off the lights and it goes dark. But when Barney did that and then put the text up, it was almost like a final nail in the coffin,
What really got me, though, was when Barney kept talking about how there was a chicken on the bus and he needed that chicken to be quiet, and then you found out that it was a baby. Oh my God, that really tore the heart out of me. No MASH fans here. What the hell's going on with this world?
I was not. You said Barney, but I was not a.
I know.
Right.
I was just
I like
kidding.
MASH, but
I was
I'm not
conflating them. Yes.
Yeah.
No, the end of MASH was the one for me. That was my landmark when it was just like, okay,
Right.
this is really bad.
For a long time, that was the highest rated episode of television.
Oh yeah.
right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
You talk about the Mary Tyler Moore show. It didn't occur to me. It is the exact same ending. It's the turning out the light, but the hallway light shining through the frosted glass of the door, which same thing happened on Mary Tyler Moore with the WJM. And so I guess subconsciously I was like, oh, are they going to do a thing where, whereas they run the final credits, maybe the cast comes back out? Because I'd forgotten. I haven't seen the final episodes of Barney Miller in so long. I'm like, are they going to come out and take a bow? But then I'm like, well, that wouldn't make any sense because there was no live audience.
Right.
So they just run the credits over. They don't run the music. They just run the credits over the dark office with the lit frosted glass that says, detectives. And they just run the credits. Yeah. It was kind of too bad because on Mary Tyler Moore, they all come out and they all take a curtain call basically in front of whatever that live audience was.
Did they actually do that in 1977 or
They did. And if you have the DVDs, you see it.
because I know it's on the DVDs. I couldn't remember if that was something they added on the DVDs or if it actually happened.
I think it actually happened. I think
Oh, wow,
that was something they could do because they had those people. And I think when you go see a show being taped, they do that. There's a lot of interaction between the cast and the studio audience
And
that's
the
there.
audience, yeah.
And they do a little at the end because as a kid, I saw Different Strokes being recorded live, and I saw Three's Company. And they would come out and do a bow. And then in college, I worked for the newspaper at USC, and I covered a taping of Family Ties.
Ooh,
wow.
Nice.
What's amazing about all I can tell you about Family Ties was Michael J. Fox's bedroom was built almost, not quite, but almost at 3/4 scale.
That's funny
because he was so short.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As he moved, because I'm like, wow, what's that cramped? Is that the attic? Like I almost didn't until he came in, and then it's like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, and of course, when you're watching it, they have monitors because some scenes get filmed at an angle or on a set that's not exactly in your eye line. So they have monitors up, so that you just glance up, and now you're just watching the show. And I glanced up, and I'm like, oh yeah, he looks totally cool. He's fine in that room.
Wow, playing with perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. Like his own little Hobbiton.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Michael Gross had to duck to come in.
Right. Whoa. Yeah. I am not here to hurt you.
It's only his staff.
I'm here to help you, little Alex P. Keaton.
I'm also ashamed that I let the opportunity get by when Richard said that he had been to a taping of Different Strokes that I didn't say, what you talking about, Richard?
Well, there you
was
go.
it the Bicycle Man episodes?
Why did I know that's where you were going to go?
Oh, just because I'm a sick fuck and that episode was completely horrible for me. And especially to see that kind old man from WKRP in Cincinnati being a pederast.
Oh, yeah. Gordon Jump.
Jump, yeah.
Now keep this between you and me, Duncan. Yeah.
I've been living in that world because my wife, Susan Lambert, who does a show for Weirding Way called 80s TV Ladies, a look back at television from the 80s from a female perspective in front of and behind the camera. We've been watching so much Facts of Life.
Oh my God.
So much Facts of Life. And so I'm living in that world of, Charlotte Rae and suddenly Conrad Bain is there and, Todd Bridges and Dana Plato and of course, Gary Coleman. So anyway, yeah, all the Different Strokes, Facts of Life verse is very fresh in my mind.
I'm sorry. You have my deepest sympathies.
Yeah. What was the girl that was it cerebral palsy on that show.
Oh, Jerry Jewell.
Jerry,
Jerry
yes.
Jewell.
Yeah, I really liked Jerry, and I liked her interaction, and but I was not a fan of that show overall.
No.
Look, you take the good, you take the bad.
There you go. Yeah.
You take them both, and there you have facts of life.
So this has been a journey. We've been doing this for
5 years.
5 years?
5 years.
5 whole years. And
5 years, Mike.
so even though we didn't watch this over an 8-year period of time, it was still really affecting to watch this finale and to think, this is it. This is the last time I'm watching Barney Miller for this show, because this has been a treat for me every month, getting together with Chris, occasionally with Otto, more with Richard, just because we like Richard more.
Sure, rub that salt right into the wound.
Mike. Oh yeah. So it's been quite a trip going through this, and to see these years go by over the last 5 years, to live those 8 years between the late 70s and the early 80s, and just see all these political things that have happened, how they've affected the show, to get those, like the whole the president says to drop dead to New York type of things, all the way into now Reaganomics and seeing people losing their job here in the early 80s. And but to have this time capsule has been so valuable, and to spend this time together, I can't thank you guys enough, because this has been a real trip for me, just re-experiencing this show that I saw originally when I was not even 10 years old.
Well, let me talk about it. Let me just say, in the words of another show that hurt me when I had to say goodbye to it, I'm so glad we had this time together. Richard, do you remember Carol Burnett show? Of course.
Oh my God, dude. I mean, not to keep name checking my wife, but I've also been watching a lot of Mama's Family.
Oh
God.
That show sucked.
How was 70s television so good and 80s so bad?
Oh God.
It's funny because, there was this little thing called syndication. Mm-hmm. So certain shows like 9 to 5 and Mama's Family would be on network for a year, maybe 2, and then be canceled. And then syndication would go, oh no, but see, people want to still see this, so we're bringing your ass back. Mm-hmm. That happened to both those shows. But it's saying goodbye to shows is weird back then. Now you're lucky if you fucking get, it's like,
exactly.
It's like, there was, let's see, we got 6 episodes, and then 2 years later we got 8 more. And then I think in another 18 or 20 months, I think they're going to give us 8 more, maybe. The relationship people have to television now is very, very different.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're wrapping up, so I'm not going to get into that discussion. All I'm going to say is I am so honored, first of all, to always get to talk to Chris and Mike, which I've been honored to talk to them on various shows and in various podcasts for the last handful of years. And then finally on this final episode to get to meet on Zoom Otto Bruno. What a thrill.
Well, I hate to ever get serious. I like to always be cracking jokes. But yes, this has been great for me because I did get to meet Mike and Chris, and now Chris used to have me on a couple of his shows, but he hasn't had me for a while. I
haven't even done my shows in a while.
He's dropped.
You know what depression is called? I do all too well.
Yeah. That's actually why I do anything, is so I don't have to think about the things that would otherwise be depressing.
That's fair. I get it.
But I'm so glad because I go on projection booth now, and now I've met I will now say the famous Hatem. Now that I've met him, he's not infamous anymore.
What about the late great Richard
and I don't
Hatem?
Clearly, our past rivalry is in the past.
It's dead. It's dead. We're dead. Yeah, we're fast friends. But no, it really, I mean, like because I do a radio show on a public station that I volunteer at, and I've done it for 25 years. And I always say I don't get paid for it, but I've gotten paid in so many other ways by the people I've met and things like that. Well, I know I'm going to shock the three of you now, but writing a book on Barney Miller is not as financially rewarding as you might think it would be.
What?
I know,
These
I
are
know.
shocking turn of events today. We're learning that writing books doesn't, in fact, make you money.
I know.
What
I
about
know.
when you sell the rights to Blood on the Badge? That's gonna net you so much.
Why, instead of writing a book about Barney Miller, did you not write a book, like a slash fiction book about Barney Miller, where it's like
Oh my
Wojo and
God.
Barney are like having a thing together? Like that might have sold. There's a crowd for that.
Chris,
yeah.
all the things I'm interested in, Chris, will never make any money. Okay?
I mean, the show ran for 8 seasons, baby. I don't know if that's technically true.
I know. Actually, I've been surprised that as many people have been interested in it as have been. So that's great. I'm happy that just people are still interested in the show because I love the show so much. But I really getting to meet guys like you has really made it worthwhile. That's it. I won't ever say anything nice about you two again.
Good.
It's too treacly.
Oh, too painful, I'm sure.
Yeah. Does that hurt you? Does that hurt you from your inner core?
Otto, you talked about the one book. When is your new book coming out?
Oh, the new book is supposed to be out sometime this summer, but they have not given me a date on it yet. It's a book. It's going to be a baseball book called Italian American Baseball Profiles from 1920 to 1980, and it's coming out with McFarland Publishing.
And it's not called Spaghetti Swingers?
No, actually, I had a very creative title, but they didn't want that, so they gave it the most boring title you could imagine.
What did you want it to be called? Grind That Organ Monkeys?
Oh, my God.
You said Italian Americans. I'm Italian. I can make that joke.
Actually,
Richard's fucking face.
Actually, I wanted to call it Reunion at Home, which was lifted from a writing by Bart Giamatti, who is in the book. And so that I thought it was very clever, Reunion at Home, but they didn't like it because it didn't tell people immediately. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but our society is being dumbed down every day. So you really have to make things pretty plain to people. Yeah. So,
well, you need those keywords for the search engine.
True.
Exactly. Yes, that's what somebody told me. The people who might be buying it for libraries want to know exactly what it is when they type it in. So,
and Richard, you've plugged your the things of the past.
Hopefully, they'll stay around a couple more years.
And Richard, you've plugged Susan's show a few times. Why don't you plug your own, sir?
Are you talking about Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf?
I am talking about Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf.
Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf is available wherever you find podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, anywhere you want to find it. You'll hear about me talking about a book off my shelf and a story from my life every couple of weeks. And I'm working hard, keeping those stories coming.
It is one of the few podcasts I actually listen to. So
I was going to say, I'll have to listen. Now that you're not
good company.
Now that you're not on my enemies list, Richard, I'll have to listen to it.
Thank God. Okay.
And look what I have on under my sweatshirt, Mike.
Oh, nice projection booth shirt. Whoa, look at the merch just coming out everywhere.
Dang.
Oh, I love it.
Otto, are you going to write, now that you've gotten that baseball book out of your system, will there be another television show you write about?
I have like about a half dozen ideas in the beginning stages right now, and I was writing a book on Dean Martin, then I decided I wasn't writing a book on Dean Martin, and now I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to the book on Dean Martin. So, but I do have about 4 or 5 other things, so we'll have to see what comes out. But no, I'm not going to stop writing. I mean, what else is there to do? Good. And I love film and I love television, so I'm going to keep at it.
Well, I'm looking forward to whatever you do.
Otto's next big project is a book all about Victor Buono.
Oh my God!
He's prepping for it this year on the projection booth, but we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, by all means.
And Chris, when you're not here podcasting with me for the last 5 years, what are you working on?
I was about to say, Mike, I feel like while we've given these two jokers a moment to say their piece about this show, I think we should be given our each of us a moment to say our piece about this, because this is the first time we've ever done that. We're done. There's nothing else to watch. There's no more Barney Miller. With Kolchak, it was effectively ended out of nowhere. They didn't prepare for the end of that show. It just kind of happened. And I feel like before we plug our respective shows, I feel like you and I should at least say something about the last, like you said, 5 years that we've spent on this show together. Because we're ending a show for the first time together. We've never ended a show because this Kolchak.
We ended Kolchak.
But Kolchak just kind of stopped.
Yeah. And we ended, I'm going to make a liar out of you. We also ended Twilight Zone 85.
But not really, because midnight viewing is still going.
Well,
and
that
it
was
wasn't
Dreams for Sale, though.
But it's, I mean, midnight viewing is still going.
It's the same.
This in my mind is like the first time we've ever, like, there's nothing else. There's nothing left. Barney Miller is done. If you want to listen to us talk about the whole thing from start to finish, and the show knew it was ending. They were aware it was coming to a close. They went out on their own terms. Otto mentioned it. Mike, you talked about it. The thing at the end of the show, like at the end of Kolchak, they didn't say, thanks for watching Kolchak, everybody. Like the way this ended felt different because this is different. This show has been a massive part of our lives. I didn't get to talk about this really last episode when we talked about Max Gale, but getting to talk to Max Gale was and will be honestly one of the strangest things that's ever happened because we spent so much time with him in this show. I spent more time with him than I think I've spent with most actors I've ever talked to. The amount of time, Mike, that you and I spent with this show, talking about this show, I think is more than anything else we've talked about, isn't it?
I think you're right,
5 years. 50 plus episodes. I mean, this show has left an indelible mark on me because to the point of Richard and Otto, the characters in this show act the way you wish people would act, let alone police officer. But just, and again, I hate to say this only because I don't want to say like, well, all of a people of a certain type are this way, but you wish more men were like this because there are so many men that aren't. And they're so terrible and miserable human beings. And like, I'm not saying all cops are men, but a lot of cops are men and a lot of cops are terrible men who treat people poorly. And you look at the characters in this show and you wish you could be pulled over by somebody like Barney Miller or Wojciechowicz, or even Ron Carey, even Levitt. Like, you wish you could be treated by them the way that they treat even the craziest people that come into the precinct. Even the Kenneth Tygars of the world screaming about how they are possessed by ghosts or aliens or something else. It's not idealized, because idealized is something that should never exist. It's what people in the law enforcement field should strive for, but I think it's what people in general should strive for. And I think, if we got to talk to Hal Linden, I don't think I would have been able to do it. I genuinely think I would have said, Mike, you need to do it. I can't do it. Because Hal Linden, I think for me, and Otto, I didn't get a chance to show you this, but I recently purchased this at Christmas time. It's a Hal Linden 1-of-1 signed card that sits on my desk now. And it sits on it sits on my desk for a couple reasons. It sits on my desk, obviously, because of the indelible mark that Barney Miller has left on me as someone who has watched the show, but also because Barney Miller is the kind of person that I think we should all strive to be, which is, at the end of the day, everybody left at the end of the show. But then they all came back in because they knew they couldn't leave Barney in the room by himself right there without saying something. And it's what Wojciechowicz said, where he's like, we're going to carry a little bit of each other with us beyond here. And I say that now in a way because there's a possibility that the four of us never podcast together again about Barney Miller, and we probably won't. This is it. We're never going to talk about Barney Miller again in the same context that we spent the last 5 years talking about. We never will. This is it. We'll talk about, remember the Barney Miller show that we did together? Oh, how we had Richard on more frequently than Otto. And again, I don't think that was intentional. I don't know what Here's the thing, Otto. We've known Richard since 2016. We've known you for a long time, Richard.
That's right. And I, like I said, I came looking for this.
I know. This is, but
I knocked on your door.
But in reality, I watched the end of this show, and I'm not kidding. From the moment Barney comes out and everybody's in the precinct to the end of the show, I was essentially unable to to stop crying. And my girlfriend is sitting in the room next to me and looks over at me and she's like, "Are you okay? What are you crying about?" I was like, "I'm crying about this show." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And like, cause but I had already explained to her everything about like what we were recording today and everything. So she understood.
Wait a second, you didn't say, "Shut up, woman."
No,
and
right.
raise your hand and she
Listen
cowered.
here, Bernice.
Duck down. Yeah.
No, but she understood why, and like it's because Mike, I didn't cry at the end of Kolchak. I didn't cry at the end of Twilight Zone. I cried at the end of this because this is a journey that we have taken together, that we have involved Richard in, who we became friends with because of Kolchak, which I think, as much as we worked together on Kolchak and Rankin and Bass, which obviously is more our three like thing, like this show is really the extension of Kolchak because this show carried on from Kolchak. And then getting to meet and be friends with Otto, who again, like, and I think also earning Otto's respect in the process, which I know he may not think matters to me as much as he thinks it does, but it does. Because again, like, I know I am the odd man out here. I literally was not alive when the show was on. People my age don't even know what this show is. I told my girlfriend's dad, I was like, "You've heard of Barney Miller, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, I watched it growing up." And I told him, I was like, "Yeah, I interviewed Max Gale." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, really." So I know that I am the odd man out here, but this show has left an indelible mark on me, and getting to work with y'all is something that I appreciate more than I could ever tell y'all, because again, given my personal experiences in the last 5 years, where we were when we started this show, pre-pandemic, mind you, episode 1 of this show aired in February of 2020. Pre-fucking pandemic. We recorded it in 2019 on top of everything else, because it's, you know, it's just, I think in my mind, this show is going to be a show that I probably will put on in the background from here on out to enjoy and just be a comfort show, because the show has shown me the way you would expect and hope people to act. And especially people who are involved directly in escalation of violence and learning how to de-escalate it in a positive way. And I didn't want to wax poetically for too long, but I wanted to say something about the show, because there was no way we were going to just end the show without, I think, both Mike and I getting an opportunity to say something. If you want to hear me talk about stuff that isn't this, weirdingwaymedia.com. That's where you can find everything that I work on. So, Mike, what about you? Any final thoughts on Barney Miller?
Well, wait a minute. Before Mike goes, Chris, I want to just give you, this should make you feel better, but I think Danny Arnold would be very pleased specifically with one thing you said, and that was about people, because you said these are the people I would want if they pulled me over for a speeding ticket. Or he used to say to the actors, if you were walking into the precinct looking for help from these officers, what would you want to encounter? Who are the people you would want to encounter? That's what I want you to be. So he achieved that, and you recognize it, and I think he would appreciate that. I just wanted to throw that in.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we found out that Dietrich was raised by wolves. That was a good revelation in the last episode. So that
With
was
a straight face, by the way.
I was raised by wolves.
That was so good. Yeah, this show has brought so much joy over the last 5 years, and I'm so glad that I was able to revisit it. You know, thinking about, I was watching some Quincy the other day, and I'm just like, how crazy is it that I can watch episodes of these old TV shows and just they're there for us to enjoy. Now, of course, there's so many shows that aren't available for us to enjoy. I had to search hell and high water to find the Casablanca TV show that was 5 episodes out there. My boy Hector Elizondo's in there as Frenchie, I believe. But yeah, just crazy that we're able to watch these shows and enjoy these things from all these years ago, before you were born, Chris, to your point. And it's wonderful, and to be able to connect and to be able to have these conversations with friends, so many years later, and to be able to look at these things. And Otto, obviously, finding a huge tome's worth of information about this, just doing all that digging and being able to put things in perspective from a show that is just, so groundbreaking in so many ways. It's just been a real wonderful thing for me to enjoy this for the last few years. So yeah, also the same thing, weirdingwaymedia.com to find out what I'm working on. The only thing that you can't hear there is something that's available on Patreon, which is at patreon.com/projection booth and patreon.com/culturecast. And that is when we get together with Richard and we talk about James Bond, which has also been a real treat for me, talking about all of these Bond films. And I'm excited to get to that Timothy Dalton era.
Otto, what was that face for?
No, nothing. I'm just sitting here thinking of and listening and hearing all the things.
Look at all these things. Otto's like real bent on his shape now.
It's okay. It's okay. I guess you guys just assume I'm a one-trick pony. It's all right, whatever.
Nobody assumes anything, at least not me. I can't speak for Mike, though.
I guess Richard and I'll have to start working on the Rockford podcast. And
as long as it's hosted on Weirding Way Media, we're fine. But working with Richard Hatem, there's a slight possibility it won't be.
Can you imagine that every show would start with that answering machine message, and then it would be an answering machine message from one of you guys, where it'd be like a quote from the show later on that you say and you bring it forward, make it sound real tinny like it's on the answering machine, and then you go dum. It would be so.
You have to do this show now. You've signed yourselves up for it, just like Rankin on Bass. Remember how at the end of the Kolchak show? Remember at the end of the Kolchak show how Rankin on Bass was created? You're welcome.
Richard has the power of Hollywood behind him, so I'll do whatever he wants.
It's true.
Well, there has been a really great Rockford Files podcast that just concluded.
And there seems like there's space in the world for another one, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will. I'm not sure if there's been a Mary Tyler Moore Show podcast.
Oh, I love Mary. As a matter of fact, my family and we have been watching Mary Tyler Moore over again the last few weeks.
So all I'm saying is,
it's too bad Ed Asner's passed away, but technically Mike and I have both interviewed him. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's literally nobody left, probably, other
John
than
Amos.
Lisa Gerritsen. No, John Amos died, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. He did. It was very quiet with his death. Yeah.
No, it's just Lisa Gerritsen. Best.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Well, okay. I mean, now we're just getting into weird shit, but Susan and I just finished rewatching Mary Tyler Moore, and then the only way we could do it was by buying all 5 seasons on DVD of Lou Grant.
Hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
You made the right choice. You made the right choice.
Nice.
So, and that is mind-blowing to watch Lou Grant. But anyway, this will all get talked about. We'll do more shows.
On the Lou Grant Mary Tyler.
No,
but that's the thing. The other show that we'd always talked about, and I don't remember who was it, where we were talking about I Love Lucy ad nauseum for so long.
Oh, I don't remember.
Who was that? It was Mike, you and I, Mike, because we were talking about Lucille Ball.
Right. And then, it was an episode of something. Well, was it
you, Richard?
Had Richard on, and we were talking about the Lemon Drop Kid? Because we definitely got
that's
it.
That's what it was.
That's right. Yeah.
We did. Talking about Lemon Drop Kid, we talked about Lucille Ball. I think that's when it was. And well,
I've heard she sleeps on stone pillows.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. Still.
But yeah, Chris and I will be back in a few months. We're going to be talking about Night Court, thinking about calling that one Order in the Court. And that will be a lot of fun. And if you guys want to join us on that, you are more than welcome. We would love to have you far more frequently than we have you now.
You do know that I met Mel Torme. I was a huge Mel Torme fan.
Nice.
And I play him on my show regularly.
Oh, the Velvet Fog. So
Otto,
good.
you don't have to. Otto, you're good. Like you've made it to the end of the run of Barney Miller. You're brought into the fold now. You didn't do anything.
Like Flynn. Yes.
You didn't do anything. I promise.
If you want to come on and talk about Timothy Dalton or Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig, you're welcome on the Rankin on Bond show whenever you want. But
at this point, Otto, you could walk on down to the 12th precinct and shoot somebody in the head, and we'd still have you on the show.
Right on God!
Oh my God!
So I want to thank John Walker for providing us with our opening theme song. Thank you so much, John. I'll be in touch about this Night Court thing again. And until we don't come back next month, thanks everybody for listening and being on this journey with us for the last 5 years. Can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
And if somehow in the future, and I'm calling this shot now, if somehow in the future we manage to talk to Hal Linden, that episode will be here at some point.
Fingers crossed.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.